This fantasy football top 10 receivers edition of the Sports Gambling Podcast is brought to you by Bird Dog Shorts. Dominate summer with an amazing pair of shorts and a free Yeti-style tumbler when you order over at birddogs.com/pool. That's birddogs.com/pool. Dog.
You like that?
Long cocks.
He's one of those guys who will get penetration.
Welcome everyone to the Sports Gambling Podcast. I'm Sean, stacking the money green with my partner in picks, Ryan, Real Money Kramer. What's happening, Kramer?
Dog.
Oh, well, it's still fantasy season.
Yes,
Top 10 list, baby. Let's go. Receivers, first the passers,
Yes.
then the runners, then the tight end catchers, and now the finesse catchers.
Yeah, we're breaking down our top 10 fantasy football receivers. Of course, make sure you check out the quarterbacks edition, running back edition, tight end edition. Plenty of hot takes so far from Kramer and myself. Kramer, what do you think has been the hottest take so far?
Tune into the tight end episode.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'd say that's the hottest one.
Which one? Oh, really?
I don't want to spoil it. Just tune into the tight end episode. Sean gives out his tight end strategy, as do I. Teaser, mine's doing squats. Sean's is not.
Yes. Well, hot yoga. Hot yoga works for everything, Ryan. Hot yoga works for everything. Tighten things up. Yeah, looking forward to getting into the receivers. Of course, we were doing full point PPR. I know there's always the debate, full point, half point PPR. Which should you go with? We are a full point PPR program.
Yeah, of course.
Listen to that sound. Listen to those trumpets blare. Of course, football season is here. NFL, the summer is here. And most summers, you're sweating, right? Sweating pretty hardcore. Not in your Bird Dog shorts. Love my Bird Dog shorts. Literally wear them every day. These are shorts you're never going to want to take off. They feel so goddamn comfortable. Love the Bird Dogs. I mean, again, the anti-stink sweat wicking fabric. Are you kidding me? You keep it cool and dry all day long. Drafting in the summer, working out in the summer. I'm going to be running some 3-cone drills, getting ready to lock down Des Bryant at the Fantasy Football Expo in August. You know I'm going to be rocking my Bird Dog shorts there. Going to be rocking them everywhere I go this summer. Love it. And if you use our link, you get a free Yeti-style tumbler. All you got to do is head over to birddogs.com/pool. Use that promo code POOL, birddogs.com/pool. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you. And of course, Kramer, starting at 1 because the spicier takes seem to happen as you go down the list.
We solved the problem.
Yes. First for me, again, let's get the chalk out of the way. I tried. I sat here. I crunched numbers. I was burning the midnight oils thinking, how could I be different? How could I come up with a way not to have Justin Jefferson as my number one fantasy football receiver? Couldn't do it. Obviously, he's number one. He actually ran cold on touchdowns. I think he's going to have a lot more than he did last year. And surprisingly, if you look at Adam Thielen actually had a decent amount of red zone touches and targets there. I think some of that goes to TJ Hockenson. Some of that certainly goes to Justin Jefferson. But Justin Jefferson, just if you look at any sort of the advanced metrics, should have scored way more touchdowns last year. He still scored 8, but it should be. I mean, I got him good for like 12 touchdowns.
As Packers Twitter's pointing out, Christian Watson has a 10 touchdown season. Justin Jefferson does not. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the argument. You can't. How do you argue against a guy that seems to have positive regression coming and still had a monster year?
Yeah,
the only
playing
person
the dome.
Yeah, the only person who beat him out on a point per game basis was Cooper Kupp, and number one wide receiver in total points, number one in average for qualifiers. if you look at the spray chart that I've been using in terms of boom bust, I'm spraying all over the board. I will say Justin Jefferson,
that is a disgusting act.
4 games of sub 10 points, so some bust games in there, but even more
One of those
impressive.
played the Eagles.
Even more impressive to see that they were he was able to put up such gaudy numbers in the other games, knowing that did not get a ton of touchdown help. Did have a rushing touchdown, worth noting. But, yeah, I mean, Justin Jefferson, I think, has to be number 1. You're only going to get him if someone decides to get cute, unless you have the first pick. So, unless you're completely out on a young receiver who looks like he's, has a bright future, plays in a I'll say he's in a dome, does play in the North Division, but plays in a dome, generally favorable game tempo stuff because of the defense. Although we mentioned the Brian Flores effect could get better.
And maybe that's where he doesn't get to this number 1 spot, is if the defense for Minnesota ends up being way better and they don't have to score as much. It's still tough to imagine a world where he doesn't get, 125, 140 targets, something crazy like that.
I would go a step further to say you almost have to play the exercise. You're on the clock. It's the first pick. Do you really want to take someone else?
And I was lowballing the targets. I mean, he had 184 last year. It feels like he's going to get that again this year, right?
He had 184, and he had a same thing. Those same 4 games where he underperformed. No coincidence, Sean. In those games, he also had his lowest target totals of 6, 5, 5, and 5. So that's even more impressive. If you look at his target chart, he 2 games of 8 targets. Those bad games, like I mentioned, everything else is north of 12. So hard to go anywhere else. I think Justin Jefferson is the guy I would take first. I think you also have to factor in the lack of an injury history, the lack of any real. Every other stud receiver has another concern.
Yes.
He does not. All right, number 2.
Number 2, what are you doing, Kramer?
Tyreek Hill.
Tyreek Hill.
No brainer.
Wow.
You look at the advanced metrics like yards per route run, things like that. He is so far ahead of some of the field. If you just look at general numbers coming out of the gate weeks 1 through 9, he led the league in targets with 100. Cooper Kupp, who was having a great start to the season before his injury, was only at 93. To put that in perspective, he had the season he had, which had him finish number 2 overall in fantasy points, number 3 on a per game basis, with a collection of Tua, concussed Tua, Teddy Bridgewater, and a guy named Skyler. I was close to making him number 1.
I have Tyreek Hill 3.
Okay.
Obviously it's tough to really build a case against him. Some of those games with Tua and the deep ball, that feels a bit outliery. I think they're going to be able to do a lot of that again, but I don't know if he'll quite be able to hit some of those like crazy yards per catch and stuff that he had going. I do have Cooper Kupp at 2. I mean, again, I keep coming back to this. The Rams, the defense isn't that great. You have Cooper Kupp fully healthy. You have Stafford fully healthy. There's a chance they've improved the line here a little bit. Cooper Kupp was on pace for 153 catches last year, which is insane. So even if he gets somewhat close to that, if he gets 150 catches, he's
Sean,
number 1 by a mile.
That pace you just cited,
yes,
Tyreek Hill was ahead of him on the target pace. So I think you can make the argument both ways. I have Kupp number 3. I just think people forgot about him. He only had that 1 bust performance when he got hurt, so you could argue he had 0 bust performances.
Consistency.
Worth noting, Tyreek Hill only had 2, which is less than Justin Jefferson, but a little bit more of that spike. And so he actually had a lot more games in that kind of 13 to 18 point range versus having the Justin Jefferson like 30 points.
I think the tiebreaker for me was that the Rams, I think, are going to be having to pass way more. You don't have a guy like Jalen Waddle competing for those passing targets, those catches, everything else. So again, it's close, but I'm giving a slight edge to Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, I don't think you. I mean, and I think it's not the consensus what we're saying right now. Like we both seem to have pushed Jamar Chase down the board a little bit, and so I think specifically these 3 guys make up the very top tier to me. Because I think they all have the insane ceiling of averaging north of 20 and of collecting, 12 targets a game or something absolutely absurd. Like you said, they could be pacing towards 200 targets. All right, so number 4.
Number 4 for me is really easy. A.J. Brown, confirmed. Dog. 11 touchdowns, 88 catches, 1,496 yards. Now, this is an Eagles team that I think we're in agreement might have to pass more. Might be
True.
is going to be probably in more competitive games, playing a first-place schedule, going to need to throw the ball downfield. A.J. Brown is just a guy he's a dog. He's unguardable. You saw him dominate in big game situations. I mean, I don't know. He's costing people their jobs. That's how you know he's a good receiver. He's destroying the Titans as a franchise. 17 yards per reception.
Do they play the Titans this year?
No, they don't.
Oh,
but I mean, he's still motivated. He's still costing people's jobs for that trade. I remember reacting live to it here at the Blue Wire studio when it all went down, Ryan. It's just he's an amazing receiver. 88 receptions, career high last year. I think he could get up to 100. Give me A.J. Brown. Dog.
I would say the thing that stands out about him versus some of these other guys we're talking about is the lack of overall boom games. A lot of consistent output, a lot of that same kind of 13 to 19 points, whatever you want to call it. Not as many pure ceiling games. Maybe that changes this year, to your point. I think part of the reason I tick him down, like some of these other guys here, is there's another guy that's really good.
Yeah, I mean, Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert both, for me, are keeping him out of the top 3, right? And you can kind of say that a little bit with Tyreek Hill because of Waddle. Obviously, Jefferson and Kupp, to me, they're the ones on the island because of the lack of competition for targets and catches. But A.J. Brown at 4 just feels right. Ryan, are you going Chase at 4?
No.
Wow. Okay.
Davante Adams.
Oh, okay.
Davante Adams still last year. Derek Carr, I don't know how you feel about him. I don't think he's anything spectacular. And he more than doubled the boom games of A.J. Brown. Meanwhile, he had the same amount of bust games, so 4. So we're talking about a guy that I just think slightly higher ceiling, definitely going to demand all the targets out there in Las Vegas. I don't really know how this works out for him. Another kind of bad quarterback experiment for Davante Adams. But I with him, I'll always bet on the talent. He's a red zone target as well. I slightly cute putting him ahead of Chase and Brown probably, and even Diggs. But pure talent. You could arguably say he's the best receiver in the league from a fantasy perspective. Obviously, the downgrade is the quarterback, but game situations, the defense probably not going to be very good or not going to be much better than last year. They could be playing in some shootouts. The division can all score some points. So I'll bet on Davante Adams one more time. Again, it's all about targets. You talked about Justin Jefferson, his 184 targets last year. Number 2 in targets last year was Davante Adams with 180. So Target Hog kind of has that ceiling in terms of target percentage with Kupp and Jefferson. And
Matt Collins either.
No Matt Collins this year, although Myers is in town.
Yes, Michael Mayer.
Again,
Austin Hooper.
Again, you really have to talk yourself into some of these other targets as being true secondary alphas. So I slid Adams up the board a little bit. I get him a lot at the end of the first round and sometimes even in the second round. So Davante Adams is my guy.
I'm going number 5, Jamar Chase. I mean, what more can you say about Jamar Chase?
One last thing about Davante Adams. He was the most consistent player last year with targets. Only one game where he had less than 7 targets. One game. That's insane.
Yeah.
All right.
For me, Jamar Chase, again, back-to-back 87, 81 receiving receptions, and he had 87 catches in only 12 games. So again, if you're projecting him to be fully healthy, which, obviously he dealt with a little bit of injury there, but I don't think that's something he has to worry about this year. If he's healthy for the entire season, I think he gets over 100 catches. I'm high on Burrow. I think he's going to start. Him and the Bengals offense is going to start hot compared to some of their slower starts of previous years. He's just going to be involved in the offense. I know that you have Tee Higgins, 24 red zone targets last year, and that was, again, in only what is it, 12 games he played. So again, averaging 2 red zone targets per game. That's going to be pretty sweet.
Wait, you said Higgins. You meant Chase.
I said Jamar Chase.
Okay. You said something about Higgins.
Oh yeah. Competition with Tee Higgins.
Okay. You kind of rolled into your red zone target. So
okay.
That's why I'm just making sure. Yeah. I think Chase is also very consistent. He has the same consistency numbers for the most part. Again, scrap the Bills game. He only has 1 game with less than 8 targets. Similar, obviously had some injury
How are you
concerns.
getting stats on that Bills game, Ryan? Because I was told that game didn't exist.
I'm saying if you throw it out. He didn't have any targets in that game.
I mean, I guess the knock is he did sign a big contract.
My knock is that
yes.
I think he has the best number 2. I think Tee Higgins is the closest. I think with Brown and Devonta Smith, it's very clear who the alpha is. And I think with Tyreek Hill and Waddle, it's very clear who the alpha is. I think with Jamar Chase and Tee Higgins, if Burrow and Chase don't go to college together, I'm not sure you know who the true alpha is. Also, Tee Higgins in a contract year. You don't think Joe Burrow wants to help get his boy paid? So I did dock Jamar Chase a little bit. Again, a little bit of injury too. He was very consistent. He is my number 5. He's right in the same tier here.
Yeah, I got him at 5 as well.
Slightly ahead of my number 6, who's A.J. Brown. You already discussed it. He finished 6th overall last year. He finished down the stretch. He was 5th in targets weeks 13 through 17. Like I said before, when you were talking about him, a little bit less of that boom right out of the gate. He had a number of fewer target games. He had 4 games with sub 7. If you add in the 7 target games, it goes all the way up to 7. So a lot less of those complete dominant takeover. That being said, I think A.J. Brown's the true alpha on this team, and I do think I do think they're going to pass more. And so I think having A.J. Brown here, having Devonta Smith be someone that rolls off onto a team in the end of the 2nd, 3rd round, that makes sense to me. But, yeah, I mean, again, target-wise, A.J. Brown, last year he had 145. Let's say they pass a little bit more, and he ticks up 5%, maybe 10. So, yeah, I mean, 160, I just think that limits his ceiling. So he's number 6.
You know what? There's no ceiling to Underdog Fantasy. That's right. $15 million up for grabs at Best Ball Mania 4. Have you drafted your teams yet? Best Ball, to me, that's it. It's the most fun part about the summer. You're just getting ready for the NFL season right around the corner. You can get in these Best Ball Mania drafts. Again, $15 million up for prizes. Use the promo code SGPN. Get 100% deposit bonus up to $100. The Best Ball Mania entry is $25. So essentially, you get 4 free entries to win your share of $15 million in prizes. They also have over-under for season-long player props, Ryan. We're going to be breaking some of those down later on in some upcoming shows. There's just so many ways to win. MLB daily pick'em. There really is a ton of fun. And again, Best Ball is the best way to draft because that's all you do. You draft. You don't have to be sitting on there on the waiver wire. You just draft your team. You completely forget about it. You never have to get a Venmo request from your cousin or join in your family. The worst part about sometimes fantasy is fun, but a lot of times it just, have you ever opened up your phone? There's like 65 messages of, hey, what reminded me of that was this, we're in this, in our crypto league, Ryan, and one guy.
Please tell me we're not in that league this year.
One guy wanted to find the other guy. They didn't know each other, wanted to fly out to the East Coast to beat him up because he proposed a trade before the Jamar Chase injury news was out, and he thought he had inside information. Scrap all that. Just play best ball. UnderdogFantasy.com. Promo code SGP. And Kramer, you gave out your 6. I have Davante Adams as number 6. It's just a Jimmy Garoppolo. Can he support? I mean, the foot thing I think is real. Jimmy Garoppolo supporting a top 5 fantasy receiver. I don't know. To me, it's just, there's a lot of concerns about that Raiders offense, I guess. And I'm just not a Josh McDaniels guy. I understand all the target shares from previous stuff, but I do think Davante Adams did have a legit connection with Derek Carr. Again, not totally out on Davante Adams, but
you're saying they were college buddies?
No, but I mean, again, he had a good rapport.
They did play in college together.
Yeah, he had a good rapport with Aaron Rodgers. He had a good rapport with Derek Carr.
Because he's a pro. Yeah, he's going to have a good rapport with whoever his quarterback is.
Jimmy G?
And he's going to say, throw me the goddamn ball. I'll make the catch.
what did he have? Again, I like Davante Adams. I think 6 is certainly no insult, especially when you consider the 5 guys ahead of him. Your angle on his lack of competition, I think, is a good one. I'm just slightly down on the offense and quarterback in general. So, to me, 6 feels about right for Davante Adams.
I mean, last year he scored all those points in spite of Josh Jacobs having a career year. I hear you. I just think sometimes it's easy to take a talented guy on a bad team. I mean, we've had D-Hop in the past. We've had Andre Johnson in the past. Shout out to my Texans. All right, number 7. I'm wondering if you've left him off your list just to be extra spicy, but it's Steph Diggs.
Yes, he's not on my list, okay. Ryan. Breaking news. Stefon Diggs is not on a top 10 fantasy receiver. Maybe I'm a TMZ fan, Ryan. Maybe I'm falling for days of our league.
Like sands through the hourglass, so are the days of our league.
Why did Stefon Diggs decide to not show up at practice? They said it's not football related. Josh Allen loves him. Or does he? If Josh Allen loved him so much, why didn't he play better in Cincinnati? Why did he adjust his contract to make room for D-Hop, and then they didn't sign DeAndre Hopkins? A lot of questions in Buffalo, right?
Kind of maybe maybe an opportunity for something topical, but feels a little bit like the captain of the Titanic is heading into an iceberg, a.k.a. Mr. McDermott is losing control of the situation. Again, he's lost a number of assistants.
That's kind of my reason I'm out on him.
But when things get hard and things start falling apart, you fall back on what you know. Squeaky wheel narrative. Steph Diggs is going to get a lot of targets. He had a bad end of the season last year. He only had 27 targets down the stretch, 13 through 17.
Yeah, why do you think he's pissed?
A little bit of what, and he still finished with 156. He still finished averaging north of 9 targets.
On my list, Ren. Just outside.
That's fair. That's fair.
And like all great coaches, I want to make him earn it.
It's just hard. It's hard. Again, it feels spicy to get him that far. Honestly, putting him where I've put him, he's not generally the guy I take. I don't have a ton of Steph Diggs.
No. For me, number 7, Amon-Ra St. Brown, the sun god himself.
Wow.
Great game environment in Detroit. I still think their defense is going to be bad. A lot of easy passes for Jared Goff. Nice jump in yards per reception. Last couple of years, 10.1 up to 11. And he doesn't have to compete with Jamison Williams for a big portion.
6 weeks.
6 weeks. But then again, he barely played last year. So I do think, even though Jamison Williams has a lot of physical talent, the fact that he just is already going to be in his second year and then miss again a big portion of the beginning of the season, I think that's going to hurt him, creating just more opportunities for Amon-Ra St. Brown. The thing I really like is all the buzz coming out of camp, how Amon-Ra St. Brown, they want to get him involved even more in the deep ball. Traditionally, his yards per catch have been shorter. His average depth of target has been shorter. They're looking to extend him, getting him the ball down the field, maybe steal away some of the deep stuff Khalif Raymond has gotten or some of these other guys. Again, and he's just a true dog. Amon-Ra St. Brown, the sun god, number 7 on my fantasy.
Hopefully he works out this offseason so he doesn't sprain his ankle like a bitch. I'm sure his dad gave him shit all offseason. I mean, I guess I'll spoil it. He's my number 9.
Okay.
And I think a little because I feel like he was bumping up against his ceiling. And yeah, he had some games where he was injured in there. But I think you sprinkle in the fact that they're going to have a true dynamic deep threat. I mean, we saw how electric Jamison Williams was touching the ball, big plays. So that obviously will take away from the sun god, but do I like him as a guy that can? He certainly can reach the 30-point plateau. He can certainly gobble up target. He can have games with 12 to 15 targets. So he's got to be in your top 10.
He could eat all the dots.
I think he's an amazing early second round pick. I think ranking him here kind of puts him in a position where you're going to draft him a lot as your second round pick there. And I like it. I mean, him as a second receiver paired with a Davante Adams, paired with an A.J. Brown. And you're not as high on him, Steph Diggs, but yeah, I like that pick. But my number 8, Sean.
Oh wait, did you give out your number 7?
7 was Steph Diggs.
Okay, what's
that was your
8?
7.
Yep.
Amon-Ra St. My number 8 is Garrett Wilson. Here's the formula. I'm not in on the Jets.
Yeah.
But I am in on Aaron Rodgers' ability to produce alphas. All right. And Garrett Wilson last year, would you say he had a pretty good year in spite of just horrible quarterbacking? Which, by the way, fun fact, Joe Flacco actually had one of the top games of the season, week 2, when I was doing the research. But down the stretch, again, looking down the stretch, how were they performing? Only one player had more targets than Garrett Wilson weeks 13 through 17. That was Justin Jefferson. If you look at wide receiver rankings with Aaron Rodgers over the past couple years, in 2021, Adams was number 2 in fantasy points, number 2 in targets. In 2020, Adams was number 1 in fantasy points, number 1 in targets. In 2019, Adams was 6th in fantasy points, 2nd in targets. In 2018, Adams was 1st in fantasy points, 1st in targets. I'm not suggesting that Garrett Wilson is the athlete.
You're saying he's Davante
the wide
Adams,
receiver
Ryan?
that Davante Adams is, but I'm saying you would be stupid not to be buying him. Right now, Garrett Wilson's going at the middle to end of the second round.
What has scared me off, and shout out to our buddy Adam Chernoff pointed this out, that the Nathaniel Hackett play calling and the Nathaniel Hackett system is really tough to pick up. And again, if you look at Nathaniel Hackett, his play calling, the offenses haven't done well when he's been the play caller. It's a very complicated system. It's not easy to learn. It's a big reason why they brought in all these A-Rod guys who can easily pick up the system. What I'm worried about is Aaron Rodgers.
Go ahead.
Aaron Rodgers, a guy who doesn't have a ton of patience when it comes to people not running the right routes, young kids not running the right routes. As we saw with his short temper when it came to some of the rookies last year, your Romeo Doubs, your Christian Watson, he didn't give those guys a long leash. I'm worried Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers, his personality. Again, Aaron Rodgers now, Mr. Big Apple, hanging out. He's showing up. He's Mr. New York. He's courtside at the Knicks game. And just the overall Jets mojo is what's keeping me from putting Garrett Wilson in the top.
This is not a competition for winning football games. This is me saying that Garrett Wilson can finish 8th in fantasy points when under Nathaniel Hackett and Aaron Rodgers, Davante Adams finished 1st, 6th.
He wasn't calling the plays though. LaFleur was calling the plays.
Okay, 6th, 1st, and 2nd in fantasy points. Yeah. I'm just saying, like, if you're going to use the system is hard to pick up, it's not going to work. Well, that system generated
and bad play calling.
Sure, that system generated a target hog.
Okay,
would you agree?
But he's also bringing in specific guys to get their targets.
On record, Alan Lazard brought in why he's basically a coach in the wide receiver room.
Yeah,
great.
And he's going to get.
What is he saying about Garrett Wilson? How great he looks. What has Aaron Rodgers been coveting? A first-round receiver. What is Garrett Wilson? Unlike these other scrubs.
Second-round receiver.
I mean, with all due respect to North Dakota State.
Oh, wow, right.
The Ohio State University under the great tutelage of Brian Hartline. Are you kidding me? Playing alongside Chris Olave, Marvin Harrison Jr., Jackson Smith and Jigba.
It's a jet, Ryan. That's my final analysis. Garrett Wilson.
What would be more Jets than Garrett Wilson being a fantasy stud
on a 6-11 team? You're right.
Are you telling me I've been talking to Dick Olson too much about this one? I'm in on Garrett Wilson, number 8.
For me, number 8. I love finding the second-year jump, and this guy. I got 2 second-year jumpers here in the last 3.
Oh, whoa!
One of which,
like
Ryan,
jumping
up,
conclusion
right?
map, like a positive jump,
not jumping off a cliff.
Got it.
Give me Chris Olave, number 8, a guy who had 119 targets as a rookie in a dome. We talked about him as an interesting long shot for 30 to 1, 40 to 1 range for most receiving yards. I just can't imagine Michael Thomas is actually going to play. I'm not worried about that competition. You're in a super soft NFC South. Like I just mentioned, tons of games in the dome. The eye test for him is electric, super athletic. And when we did the deep dive on the receiving yard leaders, you need to get that, you need to be around 15 yards per reception to get that. He had 14.5 yards per reception with Andy Dalton. I'm not the biggest Derek Carr fan, but it's not out of the world for me to believe that Derek Carr comes in here and Chris Olave gets a slight bump from what he was doing with Chris Olave. So yeah, give me Chris Olave. Again, he's just an eye test to me. Love a guy like him making a second-year leap. And it seems like a good situation in a soft division. Tons of games.
So you like the angle of a second-year Ohio State receiver making a leap with a veteran quarterback coming in to help the offense improve. Yes. Got it.
But Chris Olave, not Garrett Wilson. That's you forgot the part that they're on the Jets, right? That's the biggest thing.
Well, I'm confused.
And they don't play the dome.
I got to be honest. I'm surprised because I was showing you my $500 underdog best ball fantasy team, and I have a bunch of the Saints, including Chris Olave, and you gave one of these like, huh? So
who'd you have? Daniel Jones as well?
That's not important.
That was my
Chris Olave as a late second-round pick.
Oh, it's a great pick.
Great pick.
I have a ton of shares of Chris Olave.
Michael Thomas, fun fact, he scored 17.7 PPR fantasy point. Oh, I'm sorry. That's an incorrect statement. He scored, I don't have the number. Anyway, Michael Thomas had an insanely good game week 1. 22.7 PPR points. Michael Thomas in his first 2 games when he was healthy, he topped 40 total points in PPR format. So that's definitely promising for the idea of Olave coming back. If Michael Thomas can be a number 2, Sean. All right. Do you that was your 8.
Yep, I'm up to 8.
You
already gave out your 9. My 9, Deebo Samuel.
Whoa, running back in the wide receiver room.
Well, again,
wow, okay.
This is I'm Deebo and Christian McCaffrey I like specifically because
your troll of Niners fans is out of control right now.
Specifically as an insult to the 49ers quarterback situation. And I like guys with a chip on their shoulder. He said his season was awful in 2022. Again, the 49ers have massive question marks at the quarterback position. What do you do to make their lives easier? You give screen passes to Christian McCaffrey. You hand the ball off to Deebo Samuel. This guy has some dog in him.
Lots of dog.
And no competition at the receiver spot. So whatever 15 completions the 49ers quarterback will get, I think it's going to be him getting 7, Christian McCaffrey getting 8. And again, not as high on Kittle as everyone else. So Deebo gets really easy stuff. He's involved in the offense as a running back as well. And they see like there was that weird stuff with his contract and whether he wanted to be a running back. They seem to have figured it out. He seems to be cool with having a running workload. So I'm in on Deebo Samuel.
And he also, last year was a regression year. He had a tremendous, I think it was 8 touchdowns the year before on the ground. That was never going to happen again. So maybe a little bit of that pendulum swinging back towards the middle. All right. I think my 10th guy is going to end up being a little spicy. Some people will call it boring.
CeeDee Lamb?
Some will call it
spicy.
Right,
the fans are wondering, where is CeeDee?
Oh, they're running the ball.
CeeDee's nuts.
If you gave me truth serum, the lie told on an earlier episode might have been on the running back episode. CeeDee Lamb's not in my top 10.
Yeah, same.
I'm out on that. Brandon Cooks entered the formula. We're big Brandon Cooks guys here, so. I got close to thinking D-Hop could be my number 10 just to have a D-Hop conversation because his numbers still looked pretty good last year on a per-game basis. But, Sean?
Yep, what do you got?
All right. Keenan Allen returned from injury last year, week 11. How many players scored more points, PPR, than Keenan Allen over that time period?
35.
3.
See, I love answering when someone sets you up for the type of answer you want and you give the complete wrong version.
Only Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and Davante Adams.
But Ryan, you nailed it. Coming back from injury, a.k.a. the story of Keenan Allen's life. Ryan, the Texans aren't going to win the division. The Chargers aren't going to be good.
Keenan Allen, number 10 receiver. I'm all drafting him constantly. Him and Mike Williams are falling to the 3rd, 4th, 5th round. It's insane.
Yeah, I can't do it.
What?
And Austin Eckler's going to catch 150 passes, and Justin Herbert's going to. What could go wrong?
Yeah.
What could go wrong?
Yeah, this is all going to happen. So Keenan Allen, number 10, ahead of Waddle, ahead of Hopkins, ahead of Olave.
Shout out to the couple guys hanging out, checking out the Blue Wire Studios here in Las Vegas.
Yeah,
look like some guy. Give me a thumbs up if you guys play fantasy football.
Okay,
hell yeah.
Yeah, they also here for the fantasy.
Probably a different kind of Vegas fantasy. You never know what they're getting.
I get it. A couple grand gets you a good time for like 4 to 5 hours.
You can have any kind of fantasy you want here in beautiful Las Vegas. That's what's so awesome about it.
Everything's on the menu.
George Pickens is my number 10 receiver.
No. Whoa.
What's crazy about that?
That's spicy.
It's a little spicy.
Dog.
Super athletic.
Dog.
Again, I'm an eye test guy.
Dog.
Did you watch George Pickens? You can't fucking guard that guy. He's another jumper from that first rookie year to the second year. He's primed for it. This is how you know you're a legit receiver. When old school dog cornerbacks are calling you out and saying you're good. Patrick Peterson, similar game to DeAndre Hopkins.
It's kind of washed up.
Yeah, but that means he's seen some shit, Ryan.
I will say.
As a guy, I
love your take.
I'm turning 40 here. I'm not going to – another old school guy, Patrick Peterson.
I love your take.
And if you're an advanced analytics guy, what about second and catch rate over expected? This guy is in the same way that A.J. Brown really helped Jalen Hurts grow as a quarterback. I think George Pickens is going to help Kenny Pickett grow as a quarterback because of the catches he can make. He doesn't have a big frame like A.J. Brown, but his catch rate over expected is a game changer, I think. And you're going to see that in that Pittsburgh offense.
Yeah, he's the kind of receiver that gets paid the big bucks, right? They not only look big and strong, but they know when to jump and they know how to control their body.
I do like the comparison that Peterson made comparing him to DeAndre Hopkins, because DeAndre Hopkins isn't a big guy, but his game is getting 50-50 balls. Getting 90% of those 50-50 balls adds up and makes you an awesome receiver.
I think it's disrespectful because I think D-Hop is just this elite route runner who, like you said, wins at the point, never gets open, whereas Pickens is getting open.
That's true.
Pickens looks like he could be an alpha dog.
I guess I can see some similarities, and the catch rate over expected to me is a good metric as far as, hey, this is showing that you're not expected to make this catch. He gets it.
I would take issue with some of the people you ranked him over.
Who? Stefon Diggs?
Like
small energy,
like
right?
Steph Diggs, maybe a Jalen Waddle. DK Metcalf is a guy that stands out because you also like him. He's
love
big
DK
and
Metcalf.
muscular, and he can run fast.
I love DK Metcalf.
Hold on, I got to tell you a stat about him.
The DK Metcalf thing, Ryan, to me is I just can't buy into the Geno having a really good year again. I just don't have it in me, and I think it's going to be. Here's what I think. Tyler Lockett, I think, is still pretty competitive at the position. I think JSN eats away at some of his target stuff. And again, they use a ton of draft capital at the running back position. I love DK Metcalf. I would not be shocked if he cracks this top 10. I just couldn't project it, Ryan. My model couldn't.
DK, all right, so obviously Justin Jefferson, massive year, 28 targets inside the 20. Only 6 touchdowns, as we mentioned. DK Metcalf had 27 targets, Sean. Only 9 receptions, only 5 touchdowns. That touchdown regression you speak of for Justin Jefferson exists in the same exact way for DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf is very close. He's on the outside looking in.
Zach Charbonnet is going to see all those touchdowns.
Again, how does DK Metcalf only catch 9 of 27 balls inside the 20?
That's true.
For 5 touchdowns.
And maybe I'm totally whiffing on DK because like the Geno thing to me,
you want to know
it was fun last year, but people just like eye test. He lost it. He had the eye of the tiger and he lost it. When he was saying, everyone wrote me off. Problem was I didn't write back. He lost his eye of the tiger. Ryan, it's like when you're on a hot streak saying, I can't lose at these craps.
Jinx.
And then you completely shit the bed. That's what happened to Geno.
Tyler Lockett, 13th overall. DK Metcalf, 16th overall. I think the concern is you have this JSN character coming in. What is he going to take away? Feels like he's going to take more away from Lockett, more away from what would have been tight ends that they don't like to use in Seattle. I just think the Metcalf role is untouched, and I wonder if he's a guy. I certainly, in this process, I kept upgrading him because I was like, well, I definitely, now that I think about it, I like DK over this guy, and next thing you know, I'm taking a lot of DK in the early 3rd round picks. Like if I'm going running back and then receiver, I'm pairing Olave and
again,
Metcalf.
some of these are probably just shaped from the underdog best ball drafts because I have 0 Geno Smith, so I'm not.
Oh, interesting.
I'm not clicking on DK Metcalf.
I'll say this: what helped me is that when I started dabbling in the other platforms, doing some of the FFPC stuff, doing some DK stuff, seeing the various ADP all over the place helps you kind of hone in where the public is thinking and where us sharps are in the ADP
Public's
streets
not
every
going
day.
to see George Pickens coming, Ryan.
Look, I think that if you can pair Kenny Pickett with George Pickens, Freiermuth, George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, and a running back, the Steelers' offense is going to surprise some people, and I think it's an affordable stack.
I'm just laughing. We find
We
our
really
ruts.
do have teams.
We find our ruts every year. But it's how do you not like Mike Tomlin?
Just waving to some of our fans, Sean.
Oh yeah, some babes checking us out here at the Blue Wire Studio.
Just the
wait,
Wednesday conference crowd.
Ryan, who's your number 10?
It's Keenan Allen. You shit
Keenan
all
Allen,
over
sorry.
my Keenan Allen pick.
No. The injury thing is just what always gets me with him. And this is the Chargers year. No, seriously, this is the Chargers year. So who are any regrets on guys you left off, Ryan?
Calvin Ridley.
Why?
Ask me why.
Why?
Well, look what Christian Kirk did last year. I know that Christian Kirk's still there, and I know that there is a certain rapport, but Calvin Ridley's a different kind of receiver.
But
know
Calvin
this.
Ridley,
True alpha.
He hasn't played football for so long.
I know. He sat out for
That to
sadness.
me is
He sat out for gambling.
I just can't put him in the top 10 considering his history.
How many? So here's what kind of like, okay, thinking about this slightly differently, Christian Kirk had 22 red zone targets. I think a lot of those go right to Ridley. I think Evan Ingram's red zone targets, a lot of those are going to go to Ridley. I think
I guess just instinctively too, like the Jags hype.
Oh yeah,
maybe that's why Calvin Ridley to me and Christian Kirk weren't guys I was going to put in these top 10.
I was drafting Ridley when he was a 6th round pick, and then a 5th round pick, a 4th round pick, and I'm still drafting him around like where I kind of have him right after the tier that ends with like DK Metcalf, Devonta Smith, Tee Higgins, and then like after that, I'll entertain Kirk and Ridley, because I do think it's hard to ignore what the Jags could be in terms of a passing offense. I'm with you. I don't buy them as a great team.
Yeah,
but they were putting up productive fantasy performances without
and they
winning
are
games.
in the AFC South, which is pretty soft.
Yeah, we got to come up with a name for it. Should we call it the slot machine? There's got to be something.
Slot. How's a slot?
I mean, it's just like the flow chart exists in the South. No one's gonna. The games are gonna be wacky as shit. There's a lot of like interesting fantasy relevant conversations.
Yeah. You don't know where it's gonna end up. All right,
Plinko.
Slot machine South. Slotty South.
Yeah. I mean, what about you? Anyone? I think like the one guy who I think.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I should have put Steph Diggs in, but again, like that, just bad vibes out of Buffalo. I'm going to stand by that until proven wrong.
I'll say that Jalen, like what stood out to me as surprising as I was doing the research was just seeing how productive the receivers in Miami were.
Yeah.
Considering how
Jalen Waddle's probably a guy.
Jalen Waddle was 8th overall in fantasy points last year. Tyreek Hill was 2nd. And Tua was like in and out of the lineup. I mean, think about it. They signed who's their backup, Sean? I can't wait for a Mike White game, because I think Mike White can make it work with these guys.
Dog.
So and the other thing I noticed with the Miami receivers is it wasn't always correlated. So like let's just say you were going to draft those first 2 picks, you take Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. There were times where like when Hill went down, Waddle would get the 25-point game.
Yeah.
So look, it's hard to say Waddle shouldn't be in here. I just also haven't been drafting him a lot. I'd much rather pay up for Hill than take Waddle in the 2nd round.
Yeah. I mean, you can't put Waddle above Hill.
Anyone else?
Yeah, no, I don't know.
Terry McLaurin almost made a surprise.
Really?
He's very close for me to the top.
To me,
he's another Ohio State receiver who's just really good.
I think
the Giants trouble a bunch. James Bradbury used to talk about how he was the toughest cover in the division. And
I think if you're going, especially off ADP, I'd rather have Jahan Dotson. If he stays healthy, I think he's the guy that's super interesting fantasy wise.
I like both of them. They go nicely with Sam Howell and Logan Thomas.
Chris Godwin's a guy I always like, probably save it for the sleeper episode. I don't think he can get their total volume, but Mike Evans, I mean, God, they got him ranked 34th
in the high stakes stuff at the
crazy.
FFPC. I was able to draft him in like the 8th round, maybe. I get it. He's older than Godwin, but they've both coexisted for a while. I think their defense is going to take a decent step back. Todd Bowles likes to be aggressive. They could be in situations where they have to play negative game script style. And, again, let's remind people, Mike Evans is going for his 10th straight 1,000-yard year.
Yeah.
This man got Johnny Football drafted in the first round of the NFL draft. That's how good he is. He can do it with Baker. He can do it with Kyle Trask. I love Bull. I think, not to make this too much about best ball, but the Bucs are one of those teams you could draft the whole team with almost no cost. You can draft almost the whole team with no cost. I'll tell you what, Russell Gage is still on that team too. I mean, there's all sorts of fun guys. I'm not as in on the Bucs as I am the Texans.
No. All right. Oh man, what a fun! Again, the fantasy football juices are flowing. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code SGPN, birddogs.com/pool.
One last thing,
over
Sean.
There, yeah.
You didn't mention DJ Moore. Just want to no.
I
okay. So
again,
the Justin Fields progression won't be that big.
I mean DJ Moore. I honestly, I think Darnell Mooney is the guy if you're talking ADP because he has all that chemistry with him previously.
Moore was scoring points with some pretty shitty quarterbacks. He could be interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
5th round. I mean, he's getting pretty disrespected. Anyway, let's get out of here.
Let's get out of here. Hey, coming up, we got fantasy football, or sorry, not fantasy football. Just knock those out. We have college football conference previews coming up. Tons of great stuff. Of course, make sure you that subscribe button.
We do have a couple more fantasy episodes.
Yeah, a couple more fantasy episodes. We'll do some sleepers and busts. Obviously, stay subscribed, youtube.com/sportsgamingpodcast. Join the auto download army on Apple Podcasts. Turn those auto downloads on. Don't let corporate gambling stop us from taking over the world.
Sean, it's the only way you can fight the AI movement.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Stick, put it up. Yeah, come on, turn all the downloads on. You're subscribed. Yeah. Obviously, you want to download the podcast.
Listen, here's the flip. Here's how you actually sell it. By doing this, you're not telling the robots what you're doing at every moment.
Yes,
you download it offline. You can listen in private. No one knows when you pause.
Ryan's got to go unplug his Alexa. Hey, thank you as always for tuning in.
Thank you for participating in the Sports Gambling Podcast.
For the Sports Gambling Podcast, I'm Sean, stacking the money green. He's Ryan.
It may have sounded like Sean was joking, but you absolutely should unplug that Alexa.
Kramer, let it ride.